Hello potential viewers, welcome to my channel. So the other day, I was browsing some social media sites, like a total loser with no job and life. And the internet being what it is, I encountered some pretty interesting posts. I will not share screenshots here because I don't want to go back and find them just because I would like to make this video. So here is the recap. These posts, posted typically by white women, argue that it is never okay for a non-black person to say the N-word under any circumstances or any context. But then I wonder, what if there is a white person who grew up from a typical black background, has tons of black friends, associates, business partners, and employees, and pretty much became one of them? What if that person's circle of friends accepted this person and gave him the N-word pass? And his uttering of the word is not out of malice, but a genuine sense of brotherhood and respect, and his respect for the culture. Yeah, I am not an N-word specialist. I might have uttered the word long time ago when I was having a rap phase, but during that time nobody cared. Literally no one cared. We all know that it is a bad swear word, but kids being kids. If you are looking for an apology, you won't get one. But the discussion, if you can even call it that, did get me thinking. These posts basically argued that there is some sort of overarching moral principle, that even though there being no offense taken at the place and time of the utterance of the word by its audiences, which consist of the victims of the word's malice in the past, the uttering itself is still considered an inherently malicious act, deserving of social retribution and punishment. Even after careful consideration of the arguments, that there being historically malicious intent behind the word, and containing of tremendous weight, I would still argue there being no such moral principle, and the historical weight and historical malice only warrants caution about time, but not outright removal of the word from any of our conversations. Sure, no one has a genuine need to use a racially insulting word, and it can bring out negative feelings from those who hear it. But if it is being uttered with no malicious intent, in contexts like quoting and singing, it should have been regarded per its intent of use. The word itself, being loaded with history and whatnot, is but a sound and a reference. Sadly, this is not the world we live in. A commonly used argument against this is a slightly personal one. How about people just utter a racial insult against you? They could say they have no malice. Wouldn't you be offended and abused? For that I answer, well, good. You should be able to utter the word. In fact, as an ethnically Chinese individual, here is your Chink card and you can take it. Or you can call it your C-word pass. Though that one might be ambiguous. If you use this name, people mistake my gender. But someone still might say, your card does not count, since someone else can still get offended. Therefore, it still is a bad deed to utter the word, even if the one saying it has no malice and he has your card. The logic does not stand. Reason being, there being absolutely no reason that the person's feeling offended trumps my Chink card and my okaying the enunciation of the word, without resorting to emotional arguments like someone else's supposed emotional distress from the offense should carry greater weight than my apathy. So no, I reject this argument because I reject its fundamental premise that offenses being any sort of argument, and that emotional reaction, as flimsy as being offended by a mere word, carries any weight in a general moral discussion. Even acknowledging that mental effects of abusive language is kind of a harm, the utterances of a word, even loaded with historical context, should not be considered abusive. And for this potential harm argument, I would still invoke the basic premise of aggression and abuse, that it includes an act that is inherently dangerous or harmful or having the nature of causing immediate damage, and that the act is done with certain level of malice and intent. Hitting a person with whom you disagree with a bike lock is abusive because connecting with a fast-moving bike lock is inherently harmful to the person, and the person doing it intends to silence and intimidate the other. Hearing a racial slur is not immediately harmful because you can choose to ignore it or laugh at it, and the person might not say it from a place of malice. In fact, I would argue that this should be a detriment to one's validity of their moral argument. If you are so weak-minded and soy-filled to not be able to bear hearing a bad word, or you are so self-righteous as to presume representation for the whole community, or some sort of higher moral truth is demanding, you should not have a place in moral discussions. What about the argument that a large number of the members of the community finds the use of the word, or even the enunciation of the word, repulsive, and therefore the word should be banned, and all people who have history of using the word should be cancelled? So this argument relies on two basic assumptions. One is that the offenses taken from a critical number of the community is enough to warrant the moral forbidding of a word from being used, regardless of the context and intention. And the other is that there is no counter to the effect of this kind of offenses taken. This is a similar argument to the previous offense taken argument, just on a larger scale, with an obvious agenda behind it that the offenses taken by many is morally more warranting when it comes to banning or barring of the use of the word that can be construed as offensive. Aside from my reasonings for rejecting the previous argument, there is another point I would like to make regarding this particular one, that the peddling of a crowd of the offended individuals from said community in order to push for an agenda is sort of an immoral act in itself. It assigns the mentality and behavior of a selective subgroup based solely on political beliefs of the community that is categorized by skin color and gender to the community as a whole. This kind of misrepresentation and oversimplified selective demonstration is one of the most implicitly malicious practices of modern politics. It is, in my opinion, a great threat to complicated, nuanced, and goodwill dialogues and the freedom for individuals to not be bound by their natural circumstances and peer pressure. It is also coddling of the weak-minded individuals and victim mentality of said communities and promotes political opportunism. It is just modern-day bullying with a facade of good intentions, and we all know what the road to hell is paved with. So here I go again. I, as an authentic individual with Chinese descent and grew up with Chinese culture, and have an okay understanding of said culture and the politics of China as well as the US, I will grant my viewers unlimited number of chink cards, a card with my permissions and blessings for my viewers to use the chink word as they please. Use it whenever you feel like it. Use it in any context you feel like, with any intention you feel like. But I reserve the right to call you an asshole if you call me one. That will be all for my video today. Hope you like it. I hope to see you next time. Oh, and stay tuned for my next video on a similar topic. I am pretty filled with disdain for a lot of the so-called Asian American community. I am planning to make a video on how I feel about it and how it felt like a joke to